Breaking news from the Roloff universe, and this changes everything we thought we knew about the family dynamic. We're talking about a situation so volatile, so legally complex, and so emotionally devastating that TLC cameras were allegedly forced to cut the feed. We have received urgent reports regarding Matt Roloff's recent back surgery, a procedure that was supposed to be routine, but has reportedly spiraled into a family-shattering standoff involving hospital security, a secret legal document, and a crying Zach Roloff in a hospital lobby. If these insider theories are correct, what happened in that recovery room wasn't just a medical emergency, it was a calculated coup. We are looking at what we are calling the medical lockdown theory. Before we dive into the minute-by-minute breakdown of this alleged incident, you need to understand the stakes. This isn't just about Matt's spine. This is about control. For years, we have watched the slow erosion of the Roloff family unit, but what took place last Tuesday takes the manipulation to a level we have never seen before. We are hearing whispers that police intervention was threatened against Amy Roloff at the hospital. You heard that correctly. The mother of Matt's children, the woman who built the farm alongside him, was reportedly barred from the surgical floor. And the reason? A secret document that Matt signed while arguably under duress or influence. We are peeling back the layers on the power of attorney plot. Let's set the scene based on the fragmented information coming from our sources on the ground in Oregon. Matt Roloff has been struggling with his back for decades. We know this. It is his Achilles heel. When Matt goes in for surgery, he is vulnerable. He is scared. And most importantly, he is heavily medicated. Anyone who has undergone major spinal fusion knows that the recovery drugs are potent. You are not yourself. You are suggestible. And according to a terrifying new theory circulating among insiders, this vulnerability was weaponized. The timeline begins at 6 a.m. Matt is wheeled into the prep room. The mood is somber. Usually in these situations, you would expect a rallying of the troops. In previous seasons, whenever Matt had a health scare, the family put their differences aside. Amy would be there. The kids would be there. It was a moment of unity. But sources suggest that this time, the atmosphere was icy. Why? Because Caryn Chandler was reportedly acting as the gatekeeper from the moment they arrived at the facility. We are hearing that days before this surgery, a specific legal document was executed. This is the smoking gun. We believe Caryn may have convinced Matt to sign a medical power of attorney. Now, on the surface, this sounds standard. Partners often hold this power. But in a family as fractured as the Roloffs, giving Caryn the legal authority to make medical decisions, and more importantly, to control visitation rights, is akin to handing a loaded weapon to a hostage taker. The theory is that this document was presented to Matt as a safety precaution, buried perhaps within a stack of farm estate paperwork or NDA updates. Matt, trusting Caryn, signs it. He unknowingly hands her the keys to his isolation. Fast forward to 10 a.m. Matt is in surgery. The procedure is long and risky. In the waiting room, the family begins to gather. Now, despite the feuds, despite the farm negotiations falling apart, Amy shows up. This is crucial to understand. Amy Roloff, for all the drama, has always shown up for the father of her children when life hangs in the balance. Witnesses claim Amy, Zach, and Tori arrived at the hospital lobby looking visibly anxious. There was no filming crew with them. This was real life. They were there to support Matt. Zach was reportedly pacing, holding his phone, waiting for updates. They were acting like a family. But then, the shift happens. This is where the narrative turns into a nightmare. Around noon, just as the surgery is concluding and Matt is being moved to recovery, the family expects to go up. They expect to be the familiar faces Matt sees when he wakes up from the anesthesia. They want him to know he is loved, that despite the arguments over property lines and pumpkins, he is still dad, and he is still grandpa. Instead of a doctor coming out to greet them, a hospital administrator and a security officer reportedly approached the group. Imagine the confusion. Amy stands up, coffee in hand, expecting news on Matt's vitals. Instead, she is hit with a stone-cold directive. The administrator allegedly informs them that the patient has a strict no visitors protocol in place, authorized by his medical power of attorney. Amy, understandably, is confused. She likely pushes back, stating she is his ex-wife of 30 years, his business partner, and these are his children. The bond between a father and his children usually overrides a girlfriend's preference. But the law is the law, and hospitals are terrified of lawsuits. If the power of attorney says no visitors except the agent, the hospital must enforce it. The insider reports allege that Caryn Chandler had enacted a lockdown on Matt's room. She effectively banned Amy and the kids from the floor. This is the villain's move we have been warning you about. By barring them from the room, Caryn isn't just being petty, she is controlling the narrative. Think about it. Matt wakes up groggy, in pain and confused. He looks around the room. Who does he see? He sees Caryn. Who does he not see? He doesn't see Amy. He doesn't see Zach. He doesn't see the grandkids. In his medicated state, he doesn't know they are downstairs fighting security to get to him. He doesn't know Zach is in tears in the lobby because he can't see his dad. All Matt knows is what Caryn tells him. And this is the terrifying speculation. Caryn leans over the bed, holding his hand, and whispers, "I'm the only one here, Matt. They didn't come. They don't care. It's just us." She is rewriting reality in real time. She is confirming his worst fears, that his family only cares about the farm, not him. By physically blocking them, she manufactures the evidence to support her lies. It is a masterclass in manipulation. See, I told you they were ungrateful. I told you they wouldn't show up. Meanwhile, 3 floors down, Amy is reportedly causing a scene, demanding to see the paperwork. Let's analyze the Amy arrested hook. While we haven't found a mugshot, sources indicate the confrontation in the lobby escalated to the point where security threatened to detain Amy for trespassing if she did not lower her voice and leave the premises. Can you imagine the humiliation? Amy Roloff, a public figure, a mother, being threatened with handcuffs at the hospital where her ex-husband is lying unconscious, simply because she wants to check on him. And the footage. Oh, if this footage exists, it is the holy grail of reality TV leaks. We are hearing reports of bystanders capturing video of Zach Roloff, the stoic son who rarely shows public emotion, breaking down in the waiting area. Zach realizes that Caryn has won. She has built a wall around his father that he cannot climb. This isn't just about surgery. It's a realization that they have lost access to Matt entirely. If she can block them here, in a life-or-death scenario, she can block them from the farm. She can block them from the will. The theory goes deeper. Why would Caryn take such a drastic risk? Banning the family is a declaration of war. If Matt finds out the truth, she's done. But she is betting on the fact that she can control the information flow long enough to poison the well. She knows that recovery is a long road. For the next 2 or 3 days in that hospital room, Matt is a captive audience. No cell phone, no driving, just Caryn and the pain meds. It is an indoctrination period. We have to look at the psychology here. Caryn knows that the audience, us, the viewers, and the family are catching on to her influence. She needs to sever the emotional tie between Matt and his kids once and for all. If Matt believes that Zach and Amy abandoned him during surgery, it justifies everything. It justifies selling the farm to strangers. It justifies cutting them out of the estate. It justifies moving to Arizona permanently. This was not a spur-of-the-moment decision by Caryn. This was a tactical strike. Reports say that while the family was arguing in the lobby, Caryn was texting updates to her own circle, positioning herself as the exhausted sole caretaker. "It's so hard doing this alone," she might text. "Wish the kids would step up." It is the ultimate gaslighting. She creates the void and then complains about the void. Now consider the nurse's role in this. We have heard rumors of a whistleblower staff member. Let's call her Jane to protect her identity. This staff member allegedly witnessed the interaction inside the room. According to these unverified accounts, the hospital staff felt uncomfortable. They saw a loving family downstairs and a gatekeeper upstairs, but their hands were tied by the legal document. However, human nature is a powerful thing. Nurses observe everything. They see who holds the hand with love and who holds the hand with possession. The tension in that lobby must have been suffocating. Amy, realizing she is powerless legally, has to make a choice. Does she leave and let Caryn win? Or does she stay and risk being escorted out by police? This is the cliffhanger of the first act. Amy Roloff is not a woman who backs down easily. She has dealt with Matt's bulldozing for decades. She knows his patterns. But she doesn't know Caryn's playbook. Not fully. Caryn plays dirty in a way Matt never did. Matt was stubborn. Caryn is strategic. This medical lockdown theory also explains the sudden silence on social media during that week. Usually we get prayers, updates, and photos. But that week, radio silence. Why? Because the family was in crisis mode. They weren't posting because they were panicked. They were locked out. The silence wasn't privacy. It was censorship. As we move deeper into this story, you have to ask yourself, how did Matt not know? Or, and this is a darker theory, did Matt agree to this beforehand? Was he so convinced by Caryn that his family was toxic that he signed the paper knowing it would be used this way? We want to believe Matt is the victim of manipulation here, the groggy patient being lied to. But what if he is the co-conspirator? What if he wanted to test them? Let's see if they try to break in. No, that doesn't fit the profile. Matt loves the image of the patriarch. He wants the bedside photo op. He wants the world to see the devoted clan. This smells like Caryn's agenda, not Matt's vanity. The insider chatter suggests that Chris Merrick, Amy's husband, was calm in the storm. While Amy was ready to storm the elevators, Chris was allegedly trying to charm the front desk, trying to find a loophole. We just want to drop off a card, or we just want to know his blood pressure. Chris is the diplomat, but even his charm couldn't break the seal of a power of attorney. That document is ironclad. So the first hour of this ordeal ends with the family defeated. They are forced to retreat to the parking lot. Imagine the conversation in the car, the anger, the helplessness. Zach looks at Tori, realizing that his father is effectively being held hostage by his girlfriend. They drive away, leaving Matt alone with the very person who locked them out. And upstairs, the anesthesia is wearing off. Matt is beginning to stir. The stage is set for the most manipulative conversation in the history of Little People, Big World. This brings us to the next critical phase, the manipulation inside the room. We need to dissect exactly what was said, how the narrative was spun, and how Caryn allegedly kept the hospital staff from blowing her cover. Because for a few hours, she was the director of Matt's reality show. But she forgot one thing. Anesthesia wears off and nurses talk. The truth has a way of leaking out, just like it is leaking to us right now. We are just getting started. The setup is chilling, but the confrontation that happens when the truth finally breaches that hospital room door, that is explosive. We are talking about the moment the narrative cracks. But before we get there, we have to understand the depth of the lies told in that recovery room. We are now taking you inside the recovery room, behind the locked doors where the real damage was allegedly being done. While Amy and the kids were being stonewalled by security in the lobby, a psychological drama was unfolding upstairs that rivals anything we have seen in fiction. Sources close to the production team hint that the 45 minutes following Matt's surgery were the most critical in Caryn Chandler's entire tenure on the farm. This was her window of opportunity, the golden hour of manipulation. Matt is waking up. The anesthesia is heavy. The room is spinning. If you have ever been in that state, you know that reality is fluid. You rely entirely on the person standing next to you to tell you what is real. And in that room, the only anchor Matt Roloff had was Caryn. We are hearing reports that Caryn requested the blinds be drawn and the room kept dim, creating a physical bubble of isolation. This wasn't just for comfort. This was to ensure that the outside world didn't exist. The theory suggests that as Matt began to regain consciousness, groggy and in significant pain, his first instinct, as it is for any parent, was to ask for his children. Is Zach here? Is Amy here? This is the moment where the narrative splits. In a normal situation, the partner would say, "Yes, they are downstairs, let me call them up." But according to the explosive timeline we have pieced together, Caryn allegedly leaned in and delivered a devastating lie. We believe she told him, "Rest, honey. Nobody is here yet." When he pressed, asking why, she reportedly spun a narrative of indifference. "They're busy, Matt. You know how they are. Zach has the kids. Amy is probably working. It's just me. I'm the only one who cleared my schedule for you." Let that sink in. She isn't just saying they aren't in the room. She is implying they chose not to be. She is painting a picture of a lonely old man abandoned by his ungrateful family with only his loyal girlfriend left to pick up the pieces. In his medicated state, Matt doesn't have the cognitive defense to question her. He feels the pain in his back, he feels the abandonment in his heart, and he feels the warmth of her hand. It creates a powerful, toxic bond. She becomes the savior. They become the villains. But here's where the plot thickens. Inside sources at the hospital, staff members who were on rotation that day, have allegedly leaked that the atmosphere in the room was uncomfortable for the nurses. Nurses are trained to pick up on family dynamics. They see the love and they see the control. One specific report claims that a nurse entered to check Matt's vitals and mentioned, "There are quite a few people waiting for you downstairs, Mr. Roloff." This is the glitch in Caryn's matrix. The nurse wasn't part of the plan. Allegedly, Caryn shot the nurse a look that could cut glass and quickly interjected, speaking over her. "Oh, that's probably just the press or fans. We don't want to bother him with that right now." She dismissed the family as fans. She dismissed his own children as the press. She effectively gagged the nurse by using the privacy protocol. The nurse, intimidated by the power of attorney authority and the intensity of the situation, backed down and left the room. But the seed was there. Matt heard people waiting. Caryn said fans. In his fog, he accepted Caryn's version, but the subconscious doubt was planted. Meanwhile, downstairs, the rescue operation was kicking into high gear. Amy Roloff was not sitting idly by. We know Amy. She can be abrasive, she can be intense, but she is a bulldog when it comes to her family. After the threat of arrest, she regrouped in the parking lot. But she didn't leave. This is the crucial detail. Most people would have driven home and waited by the phone. Amy stayed. She realized that arguing as an ex-wife was a losing battle legally. The power of attorney trumps an ex-spouse every time. But Amy is smart. She realized she had another card to play, a card Caryn couldn't legally block: business. Despite the split, despite the land sales, Amy and Matt are still tied up in residual business matters regarding the Roloff brand and NDAs. We are hearing a theory that Amy pulled a Caryn move in the best possible way. She allegedly got on the phone with the hospital administrator, not as a family member, but as a business partner with urgent, time-sensitive legal matters that required Matt's verbal acknowledgement. She argued that blocking her access was interfering with a corporate entity. It was a bluff, a Hail Mary pass, but it forced the hospital administration to pause. They couldn't just dismiss a business partner with financial power of attorney implications of her own. While Amy was tying up the administrators in red tape and threats of corporate litigation, Chris Merrick was launching a charm offensive on the ground floor. We often underestimate Chris. We see him as the quiet, easygoing guy who sells real estate. But real estate agents are master negotiators. They know how to get past gatekeepers. The theory is that Chris bypassed the main security desk where they had been flagged. He went to the nurses' station near the elevators. The shift change had just happened. He found a sympathetic ear. Maybe he used his local celebrity status. Maybe he just used that calm, reassuring Chris Merrick smile. He explained the situation simply. "Look, we aren't trying to cause a scene. We know the girlfriend is up there. We just want him to know his son is here. Zach is crying in the car. Can you just get a note on the floor?" He didn't ask to go up. He didn't ask to override the order. He just asked to pass a message. It was a small request, hard to say no to. The staff member, likely feeling the injustice of the situation, agreed to send a note up with the next round of meds. This was the Trojan horse. Back upstairs, the isolation was beginning to crack. Matt was becoming more lucid. The heavy fog of the anesthesia was lifting, and with clarity came questions. He started asking for his phone. "I need to check my texts. I need to call the farm." Caryn, according to the theories, was stalling. "Your phone is dead, honey. I didn't bring the charger." just rest. She was physically cutting off his comms. This is classic isolation tactics 101. If he gets his phone, he sees the missed calls. He sees the text from Zach saying, "We are here! They won't let us in!" He sees the truth. Caryn had to keep that phone away from him at all costs. She offered to make calls for him. "Tell me who to call. I'll put it on speaker." But of course, she would control the dialing. She would control the connection. But you cannot control a hospital forever. Around 2 p.m., the shift change occurred on the surgical floor. A new nurse came in. Let's call her the hero nurse. She hadn't been briefed by Caryn. She hadn't been intimidated yet, and she was carrying the note that Chris Merrick had successfully smuggled into the system. She walks into the room. Caryn is perhaps in the bathroom or distracted looking at her own phone, confident she has won. The nurse checks Matt's IV and says cheerfully, "Mr. Roloff, your family sent this up. They said they're still waiting in the lobby whenever you're ready." Boom. The narrative shatters. Matt takes the note. It's written on a hospital napkin or a sticky note. It's Amy's handwriting, or maybe Zach's. "We are here. Love you. Let us in." The confusion on Matt's face must have been heartbreaking. He looks at the note. He looks at the nurse. "They're here? In the lobby?" The nurse, confused by his confusion, replies, "Yes, sir. They've been there since this morning. Your wife, ex-wife, was quite persistent." At this exact moment, Caryn returns to the bedside. The energy in the room shifts instantly. She sees the note in Matt's hand. She sees the nurse. She knows the wall has been breached. This is the moment of confrontation we teased. Matt Roloff is a complicated man, but he does not like being played. He does not like being handled. He looks at Caryn. The drugs are still in his system, so his reaction is slow, but the anger is building. "You said they didn't come." Caryn goes into damage control mode. "Matt, they were causing a scene. I was protecting you. You need rest, not drama. Amy was yelling at the staff. I didn't want you to see that." She pivots the lie. First, they weren't there. Now, they were there, but they were toxic. She tries to reframe her manipulation as protection. "I used the power of attorney because the doctor said you needed low stress. Amy is stressed, Matt. You know that." But the nurse is still standing there. And this nurse, the hero nurse, isn't buying it. She adds a detail that destroys Caryn's defense. "Actually, sir, the young man, your son, he was crying. He seemed really worried. He didn't look angry." That is the dagger. Zach crying. Matt has a soft spot for Zach, despite their feud. The image of his son crying in the lobby while Caryn sat there lying to him, something snapped. The theory goes that Matt, in a surge of adrenaline and anger, tried to sit up. "Get them up here, now!" Caryn tries to protest. "Matt, the protocol." "Screw the protocol!" Matt allegedly yells, his voice raspy but authoritative. He turns to the nurse. "I am revoking the order. Bring my family up, now." This is the turning point. The power of attorney is valid only when the patient is incapacitated. As soon as Matt is lucid and vocal, he calls the shots. Caryn's power evaporates the second Matt speaks for himself. The nurse nods and leaves the room to make the call. Caryn is left standing there, exposed. The mask has slipped. She isn't the caring partner. She is the jailer who just lost the keys. The air in the room is thick with unspoken accusations. Matt doesn't scream at her. He's too weak. But he turns his head away. The silence is louder than any argument. He knows. He knows she isolated him. He knows she lied. Downstairs, the phone rings at the security desk. The ban is lifted. The rescue was successful. Amy, Chris, Zach, and Tori get the green light. They rush to the elevators. The elevator ride up is tense. When the doors open, they walk down the hallway. They enter the room. And the tableau they find is telling. Matt is lying there, looking exhausted and grim. Caryn has retreated to the corner of the room, sitting in a chair, scrolling on her phone, refusing to make eye contact. She has been physically and metaphorically pushed to the margins. Zach rushes to the bedside. "Dad?" Matt looks at his son. He sees the red eyes. He sees genuine concern. and he looks at Caryn in the corner. The contrast is stark. One side is blood, the other is business. One side is love, the other is control. "I thought you guys didn't come," Matt whispers. "We've been here for 6 hours, Dad," Zach says. "They wouldn't let us in." Amy, standing at the foot of the bed, glares at Caryn. She doesn't need to say a word. The look says it all. "I know what you did." This leads us to the aftermath, the victory and the fallout. Because this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was a failed coup. And the consequences of this medical lockdown are going to ripple through the next season in ways we can't even imagine. Matt has seen the lengths Caryn will go to. He has tasted the isolation she is capable of manufacturing. The question now is, what does he do with that information? Does he sweep it under the rug to keep the peace? Or does this spark the beginning of the end for the Caryn Chandler era? We have theories on the legal fallout that happened the very next morning. Reports of lawyers being called to the hospital to review that power of attorney document. Stick around, because in the final part of this deep dive, we're going to expose the alleged legal retaliation, the secret conversation Amy had with Matt when Caryn finally left the room, and the ultimate call to action that every fan needs to hear. You do not want to miss how this story ends. The tension in that hospital room when the elevator doors finally opened and the family walked in was thick enough to choke on. We are entering the final, most explosive chapter of this saga, the victory and the fallout. If you thought the blockade was dramatic, what happened next changes the trajectory of the entire Roloff legacy. Amy, Zach, and Tori walk through the door. The visual storytelling here is critical. According to witnesses, Caryn Chandler didn't stand up to greet them. She didn't offer a chair. She reportedly stayed seated in the corner, clutching her phone, shrinking into the background. It was a physical manifestation of her defeat. She had played her hand, the medical power of attorney card, and she had lost. Now, she had to watch the very people she tried to banish reclaim their place at Matt's bedside. Matt, still hooked up to IVs, looked from Caryn to his family. The fog of the anesthesia was lifting, but the confusion was being replaced by a cold, hard realization. The first words spoken were allegedly by Zach. He didn't yell, he didn't cause a scene, he simply walked over, put a hand on his dad's arm, and asked, "Why did they tell us we couldn't see you?" That question hung in the air like a guillotine. It forced the issue immediately. Matt, looking frail but focused, reportedly replied, "Caryn said you guys weren't here. She said you didn't come." This is the moment the medical lockdown theory is confirmed. The lie was exposed in real time. Amy Roloff, never one to mince words, stepped in. She didn't need to scream. She had the moral high ground. She reportedly pulled out her phone and showed Matt the call log. "Matt, I called the nurses' station 5 times. Chris spoke to security. We have been in the lobby since 6 a.m. We were blocked." The look on Matt's face must have been devastating. He turned to Caryn. He didn't need to say anything. The silence was an interrogation. Caryn, realizing she was cornered, reportedly tried to pivot one last time. "I was just following the doctor's orders to keep your stress down, Matt. You know how chaotic it gets when everyone is here. I was trying to protect your recovery." Protecting his recovery by telling him his children abandoned him? That is not protection. That is isolation. And Matt knew it. For the first time in a long time, the sources say Matt didn't defend her. He didn't tell Amy to back off. He didn't tell Zach to calm down. He just lay there, looking at Caryn with a new expression: suspicion. The dynamic in the room shifted instantly. The power of attorney might have given Caryn legal control, but the emotional control had swung back to the family. Caryn, feeling the walls closing in, reportedly made an excuse to leave. "I'm going to get a coffee. I'll give you guys a minute." It was a retreat. She walked out of that room not as the gatekeeper, but as the outcast. Once the door clicked shut, the real conversation began. This is the secret conversation our insiders are buzzing about. With Caryn gone, the air cleared. Matt allegedly apologized. "I didn't know," he whispered. I really thought you guys just didn't show up." Zach, clearly emotional, reassured him. "Dad, we would never miss this. We were here the whole time. This moment of vulnerability is rare for the Roloffs. Usually, they are fighting over property lines or pumpkin season logistics. But here, stripped of the cameras and the contracts, they were just a father and his son, realizing that a third party was actively trying to drive a wedge between them. But let's not get too sentimental, because the fallout from this is legal and it is financial. We are hearing reports that the very next morning, while Matt was still in the hospital, a different kind of visitor arrived. Not family, not friends, lawyers. The theory is that Matt, having realized how easily his autonomy was hijacked, called his legal team. The medical power of attorney is a standard document, but the way it was weaponized against his own children raised red flags about the rest of his estate planning. If Caryn could lock his kids out of a hospital room while he was sleeping, what could she do if he were incapacitated long-term? What could she do with the farm? We are hearing whispers of a revocation order being drafted. This document would effectively strip Caryn of her sole decision-making power in medical emergencies, possibly reinstating a neutral party or even, shockingly, reinstating Amy or one of the kids as a secondary agent to prevent this kind of unilateral blockade from happening again. This is the victory in our narrative. It's not just that the family got into the room. It's that Caryn's overreach backfired so spectacularly that it may have cost her the ultimate prize, Matt's blind trust. She flew too close to the sun. She tried to exert total control before the ring was even on her finger, and she got burned. Think about the long-term implications for the show. If this theory holds water, we are going to see a very different Matt Roloff in the upcoming season. We might see Matt who is a little more guarded, a little less willing to sign whatever paper Caryn puts in front of him. We might see the beginning of the end of the Caryn era. And let's talk about Amy. She walked out of that hospital vindicated. She proved that no matter who is wearing the ring, she is the matriarch. She is the mother. And when the chips are down, she is the one who breaks through security to get to the truth. She didn't do it to get Matt back romantically. She did it to protect her children's access to their father. That is a power move that Caryn cannot replicate because she doesn't share that blood bond. The rescue wasn't just about getting into a room, it was about rescuing the narrative. If Caryn had succeeded, Matt would have spent weeks recovering at home, stewing in the belief that his family didn't care. He might have changed his will. He might have sold the rest of the land out of spite. By breaking in, Amy and Zach saved more than just a visitation hour. They may have saved the farm's future. As Matt recovers, the family is reportedly keeping a closer watch. The medical lockdown has awakened a sleeping giant. The kids are now hyper-aware of Caryn's influence. They are watching the paperwork. They are watching the gatekeeping. The days of passively letting Caryn run the show are over. We are left with a shattered illusion. For years, the narrative has been that Caryn is the easygoing one, the one who just wants everyone to get along. This incident, if true, exposes a Machiavellian side to her that we have only glimpsed in shadows. She was willing to weaponize a surgery to score points in a family feud. That is not the behavior of a peacemaker. That is the behavior of a conqueror. So, where do we go from here? Matt is back at the farm. The recovery is ongoing. But the trust? The trust is on life support. We are tracking flight logs and legal filings to see if Caryn's name is being quietly removed from other assets. This brings us to the ultimate question, and I need you to weigh in on this because the community is divided. We have laid out the timeline, the surgery, the secret document, the blockade, the lie, and the breakthrough. It paints a picture of a woman desperate for control and a family fighting to maintain a connection. Here is the call to action. Do you think Matt Roloff should revoke Caryn's power of attorney immediately? Or do you think Caryn was actually justified in trying to keep the stress of Amy and the kids away from him during a critical surgery? Was this a protection move or a power play? I want you to go to the comments right now and type revoke if you think Matt needs to cut her legal ties, or type protect if you think Caryn was just doing her job as a partner. And listen, if you want to stay ahead of this story, if you want to know the moment the legal papers are filed, or if we get that footage of Zach in the lobby, you need to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The mainstream media isn't touching this yet. They are scared of the NDAs, but we aren't. We are going to keep digging until we find the truth about the medical lockdown. This is LPBW Update, signing off. Watch your back and watch who holds your power of attorney.